Welcome, everybody. Hello, and thank you for being here on Spirit Matters. We're coming at you live from New York. I'm here with the Chutagopi, holding it down in Queens. I'm holding it down in Brooklyn. And we're so glad to be with you. Our friend Kishore is on vacation this week. He's normally here with us. We got our live virtual student audience who tunes in daily on Zoom and wherever you're tuning in from in podcast land. So glad that you're with us. First and foremost, how you doing, Achuta?
I'm good.
She's doing good.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
And nobody ever gets to ask you that question.
Nobody gets to ask me that question. You asked me that question plenty of times, and so thank you. Whether or not I give an honest answer, that's another story. If this is your first time joining us on the podcast, thanks so much for being here. We started this podcast at the beginning of the year as a sort of like a spiritual lifeline to each other and to our community to give an opportunity to come together, sort of connect, discuss how we can stay connected as a spiritual family and bring everyday life topics into perspective through a spiritual lens. And I was referencing this quote yesterday that most of us need to be reminded more than we need to be instructed. That there's not a lot of new information that we necessarily need to be offered. And we don't necessarily even have a whole bunch of things that maybe you haven't heard before, but it's just hearing them from a fresh perspective and reminding ourselves of what's important because we have so many distractions on the regular. It's crazy. All of a sudden, your mind is absorbed in something that's like, why am I thinking of that? And so we're here to try to pull our minds back towards intentional. It really is like intentional living is like declaring war on modern society, where you have like everything in some ways is almost reactionary and non-intentional, where it's just like an ad is grabbing you, a jingle is grabbing you, a conversation is grabbing you, a text message is grabbing you. It's constantly pulling you away from presence and intention. And it's like to choose to harness the power of my awareness and attention in a particular way. It's an act of rebellion. So that's what we're here. We are the resistance, and we're glad that you're here with us. How was that, Achuta? Was that a good monologue,
It's
prologue?
actually perfect.
It was
Vive
perfect.
la,
Okay.
la résistance. Vive, vive.
Vive la resistance. Um, so we've been reading from the Journey Within, and Achuta just got back from a trip, and I would love to hear just some of her realizations and sharing. Um, but then also there was an interesting dream that I had the other night, and it's related to your family, Achuta. Your family was in the dream, and and I thought that I would share it because dreams are always interesting. And Kimberly had a big open-faced wow emoji when I said dreams, and Achuta's like, I'm into mystic stuff.
I am.
Um, and so Sydney, we're happy you're here. Thanks for being here with us. Um, so I thought I would share this dream, and then it's really just a kind of like an open-ended reflection sort of question for you to talk about something um, related to family. So I was having this dream, and dreams have like so many segments and parts to them. Like one, you're all of a sudden in something, and then all of a sudden you don't really know how, but it totally like shifts gears, like almost like Inception or the Matrix or something. Like you shift into a totally different place. So there was a lot of devotees and a lot of people that I know in this dream. But at a certain point, I found myself leaving this one scene, and I was walking down the street on the sidewalk, and Govinda was there. Not Govinda, the Supreme Personality God, but Govinda, your nephew, Govinda Jones. And I think he may have been sitting down on the sidewalk, and I crouched down to sit with him, and he was just talking, and he was talking about the importance of family,
Wow.
and he was talking about the importance of like how because you have your brother and your sister and your three nephews and your parents and you guys and your daughter and your nephew, and your other nephew Nama,
Yeah.
and it's such a tight clan. And even when I was talking with Sri Prahlad, because you were at the Kirtan festival over the weekend, and they were talking about how like you guys just all move like as a herd, like you're all there in the kirtan together in the same mood. And I was talking about, I remember in 2005 when Bhakti Tirtha Swami was passing away, and his last two public appearances. Were you there in Gitanagari for
Yeah.
those last? You were there. I was there also. I was a young little brahmachari in the back. You probably didn't notice me. Um, but I remember there was a program with Radhanath Swami at IFAST, the Institute for applied spiritual technology. There's a program that he did there, and there was dinner afterwards. And afterwards, everybody was kind of mingling and doing your own thing. And then it's kind of like you guys just kind of scooted off to the side in the back, and we're just doing kirtan in the backyard, kind of like by yourselves. Like nobody's like, okay, if no one's watching us, we're just gonna go out and we're gonna go do kirtan over by ourselves. And it's kind of like you just kind of like wherever you go, whether it's at the Bhakti Center on Thursday night, or at Spanish Fork in Utah, or it's in the backyard of the IFAS house in
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. And so he was kind of speaking to that principle, and he was talking about like the meaning of sacrifice. And there was this kind of like he was talking about how each of us depend on each other in order to um, progress in our spiritual life.
Wow, this
And
is a profound dream, Dale.
yeah, he's like, Govinda never told me anything like that before. And he was really, really talking about, the image was, there was this image of you guys, like you actually did, he was referring to this sacrifice that you do every day, like a fire yagya that you do every day in your home, and each of you play a part. And it's like, he was like, if I don't play my part, then the whole thing doesn't work. And so it's like, there's this sense of like, that's how I show up. I show up whether I sometimes feel like it or not. It's not about like how I feel about it in the moment. It's about me showing up because I know that people are counting on me, and vice versa. Like I know that um, I need them as well. And so there's this sense of like working together as a unit, and sometimes we give the example in spiritual life, like functioning like a body. You have the hands, and you have the stomach, and you have the heart, and you have the brain, and they all have their function, and none is, you can't say that one is more important than the other. You can't say the brain is more important than the heart. You can't say the lungs are more important than the brain. You can't say the stomach is less important than the, you know, kidneys, because it's like if any of them fail, then the whole
Yeah.
thing shuts down. So it was kind of like, he didn't give that body example, but he was kind of talking about that. And then your parents walked up. Your parents walked up, and I was appreciative, and we were connecting, and I was talking with your mom, and I was just appreciating them for the job they did in raising your family. I was appreciating them, and I was referencing a time when I first visited New York in 2007, 2008, and there was like a youth weekend, like a Pondavasana or something that they spoke at. And I remember they were at 26 Second Avenue at the storefront there, and they were talking about like how hard it is to raise spiritually minded children. And they were talking like when you and your siblings made the decision to like take a formal commitment to spiritual life, and she was like jumping out of her seat, like, I can't believe it, I can't believe it, they're doing it, it's happening. And I was remembering that moment. She was remembering that moment, and she was like expressing, happiness. And I remember turning to your father, and I just gave him this big hug. And I was getting emotional in the dream, and I just thanked him. I was just like appreciating. I was just like, Prabhupada said like an apple never falls too far from the tree. And I was just thinking of this, of like the root, like of all of the amazing service that you and your family do. And I was like, this man like raised this family. And I was just like, gave him a big hug, and I was so thankful for that. And I thanked him. Um, and then I turned to your mom to give her a hug, but she just folded her palm, and she was like, I don't hug Prabhus.
See, I
But then
was like,
she,
you were totally spot on with this dream until that point. My mom hugs
but,
everybody.
but the follow up from that was she extended her hand, and she held my hand in her hand, and it was like a loving exchange there.
Oh,
And then she placed her hand on my head, and it was like this extensive blessing. And I
wow.
remember standing there, and the scene kind of shifted to like we were like in a public restaurant. And I was feeling kind of like awkward, like we're having this whole spiritual moment here in public. Like, should we be doing this? And but I remember she was just like placing her hand on my head and like giving this extensive blessing. And then like the rest of the family, everybody was kind of sitting down at this restaurant, and her and I stepped aside separately, and we were sitting down, and she started asking me questions, and it was almost kind of like an oracle in some way, of somebody sort of like asking me questions about my life exploration. I was like, wow, like this is really exciting. We're going to get into my life, and like some instructions going to reveal, something significant is going to happen. And then my dog woke me up.
Sounds about right.
That was about right. So that was the dream. But I remember just thinking about that conversation that I had with Govinda in your dream and that exchange that I had with your father. And I was just appreciating the concept of family and your family. And at the same time, I know that no relationships come without struggle, without hardships, without tension, without working through tension. Um, and so the reason bringing it up in the context of this podcast, one was just kind of sharing it with you. And two was just wanting to kind of open the floor for you to speak a little bit about um, the importance of family, whether it's in blood relations or whether it's in, like, we think of family as a spiritual family, or we think of family as close relationships. Um, and yeah, the sort of the importance, like, what does the importance of family or close relationships in spiritual life mean to you? And if you can also speak about what it means to put principles and values above some of the tensions and hardships and challenges that come in order to live for a higher purpose.
Hmm. Yeah. And you'll have to excuse me. I don't know what. There's a car doing some. It sounds like the car is screaming outside. I don't know what's happening there. But so funny enough, I had just been speaking to my family yesterday,
Mm,
kind of about all of that, because we were kind of just debriefing about the whole festival, how it went, how it was going, how I felt. And this festival, I you go someplace and you think, okay, and I kind of prepped myself beforehand. I was like, I just want to serve. I want to go there and I want to be a good servant of the holy name. That's my job. And when I went there, I felt like, you ever have those moments where you feel like your heart gets cracked wide open?
mm,
It's kind of easy to feel that way when Radhanath Maharaj is in town or something like that. But it was such a different gathering, and I forgot how much I needed those. And I really felt like this weekend it was just cracked wide open, and there was no even containing all of the contents of the heart. Sometimes you think, oh, well, I want to hold back. There's a group of people, you don't even know them all. There was no holding back anything. And so I was just kind of explaining and just sharing with the whole family that it was a really beautiful weekend experience. And if wherever they're having it next year, it is definitely worth it to try and go. This Sadhu Sangha festival is just, and not just the so important, Sadhu Sangha itself means this association with like-minded spiritual individuals. And we were reflecting over the weekend on the point that when asked what is the most painful thing to the heart of a devotee, one of the followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, it's not being here in this material world, it's not being without Krishna, it's not being away from it's being bereft of the association of like-minded spiritualists.
mm,
Being without the association of devotees is the most painful thing to the heart of a bhakti yogi or a bhakti practitioner. And and I'd heard it before, but everything felt, fresh and new, and it really made an impression on me more. And so that's what I feel like it is with family, blood or chosen. And the wonderful thing about bhakti is you start meeting all of these family members. The
mm,
wonderful thing about this podcast is I feel like I've met family members. You've got those people that you feel like, do I know you? I must know you. And it kind of defies all logic, and you have to let it. There is no making sense of it up here. It makes sense here, and you have to allow it to happen.
mm,
So getting to be in that kind of association is life-giving. It really re-situates the heart. It does a whole spiritual reset. Part of these pilgrimages, retreats, like the ones in September 25th to October 8th, is that you get to make these family connections with others. Part of these retreats are that the spiritual recharge that comes is through the association. The big deal about holy places is not just the holy place, but about the people who were there. They
Mm.
kind of make the holy place, the pilgrimage site. So being able to be in that association all weekend, and being able to be with family, and what Govinda said is amazing, because it is actually true. And it was what I texted my brother, literally texted him yesterday. I was like, I just want to thank you for raising me right in kirtan.
Mm.
It's like, and I just want to tell you I appreciate you. I'm so appreciative of the people that I have around me, which includes all of you. I'm so appreciative of the people that I have. And there were people that I met in person for the first time, that we had connected over the pandemic, over lockdown, over Zooms, over podcasts, over YouTube lives. And I was meeting them all for the first time. And it was like, you could see it. Everybody's heart was being transformed. Everybody was coming into this new space with so many new realizations. But over the weekend, I was speaking to everybody. My brother likes to say in Kirtan, you've got one job. You got one job. And sometimes that one job is, like you said, just to show up.
Mm.
And he's such a firm believer. He's like, don't forget your one job. And I was kind of thinking about it, and I was a little bit sad over the weekend. There were sometimes I'd see it, and you can tell when people are like checked out.
Mm.
And for a kirtaniya, or one of the people doing the kirtans, it's sad. And not for the reason that you might think. Not because, oh, my kirtan is supposed to be the best, everybody should be involved, but because I was sitting there looking, and I said, these are modern day pastimes. You
Mm.
read so many things, you read about all these other pastimes, people do a yagya. This is a modern day pastime with a nam yagya. There is it's like rains of mercy, not just, it was rains, but not just rains on the outside, but rains of mercy. There's a tidal wave of love of God, and it's here, it's coming. You can see the waves swell. And I'm looking, and I'm like, and some people aren't even getting swept away. It's like some people are missing it.
Mm.
And I looked, and then I just thought, I was like, well, I'm one small person. I can't do anything about it. But then I said, Nam Prabhu, Mahaprabhu, you can do everything. I was like, so even if it looks like they're getting caught on the sidelines or not getting swept away, you can reach out. You can pull them in. Oops, you can pull them under. You can get them swept away no matter what. And so I found myself really honestly praying so much throughout the weekend for other people, and not even in the way you might think. When it was raining and we were outside one of those days, it was kind of like 55 degrees and rain. And at one point I was kind of singing something. You could see, like, the condensation of your own breath. And I was just like, mm. And I was on stage kind of dry, and everybody else had huddled on stage. So I was warmer. And I was looking out, and they had cloth hangings near like the awning of this pavilion, and the cloth hangings weren't really made for the rain. So at first they were working, but then you could see the drops of rain coming through. They're like kind of groups of devotees. They're trying to like huddle together. And on the stage, we were kind of all telling the people, we're like, oh, just chant, the holy name, throw yourself into it, and you won't even feel it. And I was just kind of thinking, but you might feel it. What if you feel it? Because it's intense.
What if there's water dripping down my back right
Right.
now?
And it's cold water. And I turned to, he's a really beautiful senior devotee in Kirtaniya. His name is Badahari. I turned to his wife.
Mm.
They're like my parents away from home. And so I turned to his wife, and I said, Mom, they're gonna have to give out Theraflu packets and vitamin C along with lunch. And then we just kind of laughed. But then I looked out into the crowd, and then I just started praying. I said, it's easy for us to think, just throw yourself into the holy name. I was like, we're up here, we're warm and dry.
Mm.
It's easy for us to say it. I said, but look at this crowd. And then as you do devotional service, and if you do altar service, at the end, there are prayers for forgiveness. And in one
Mm.
of them, they ask, oh, my Lord, whatever austerity I've performed, either knowingly or unknowingly, please accept it. Accept that and make my life perfect. And so then I just started praying. I said, this is the austerity. And the tapasya actually gives us spiritual strength. Performing austerity actually gives us some spiritual strength. It gives us some clout. So I said, this is the austerity. I said, oh my Lord, whatever austerity everyone has performed, knowingly or unknowingly, can you accept that? Make their lives perfect. I see them. People are shivering, people are uncomfortable, but they're still here. They're still chanting. They're doing this for you. And so I just prayed. I was like, whatever it is, may all good fortune, all abundance, all happiness, may it all be theirs. And so I was just kind of feeling like that's what we need. We need our family members to pray for all of us. If they're dry and you see that we're standing out in the rain and the cold, you come pray for us. If we are far away from the family and you're right there next to the family getting all the spiritual rejuvenation, then you pray for us. And if likewise, if we see it that you're far away and we're in with the family, we'll pray for you. And this is what makes spiritual family. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj used to say, who you serve with here is who you're going to serve with there. You don't get away from anybody. So don't think that you're going to escape any of these relationships. It doesn't happen. We're going to be serving with each other for forever, right? Everybody's has this goal. We're going to get to the spiritual world and then all the problems are going to be over and all the things. We're still going to be serving with the spiritual family. And we're all going to be there together. So we better get it right now because this is the dress rehearsal. And even Gauravani was saying, he's like, he's like, this is the dress rehearsal for how we get to serve there. I was like, you're absolutely right. And it only works if we all work together. Even the people you don't agree with. We're going to find some way to somehow work together. And so when you were saying, the sacrifices that we take, that we put up with, my sister would always say, what are you willing to put up with to serve the Lord of your heart? What are you willing? Is it anything? Because then the Lord of your heart starts to test you. Is it really anything? Let's figure it out, really. Let's put our money where our mouth is. It's really like up the ante about it. What are we willing to put up with to serve the Lord of our heart? And it really puts things into perspective, especially when you have arguments and when you have disagreements, because they will come. It'll happen. But how do we go forth from that? Are we able to put that principle in there? What are we willing to put up with? Because it's going to happen. So I'm so glad that we can put up with each other. This is the sacrifice. This is the austerity. And that tapasya gives us the strength. It gives us that strength to continue and to inspire others. It gives us the strength to be open and honest with one another. I had a moment where I was open and honest with Doyle and Kishore yesterday, and you kind of get that feeling like, well, how's this going to go over? How are they going to take this? How's this going to happen? Like what? But, those moments where you're open and honest with one another, even not knowing how the person's going to take it, and then you go through that, makes us stronger as family. Those are the make or break moments that change it from a passing acquaintance to family.
Yeah, you have that feeling of walking on eggshells where
Yeah.
no one wants to be. Walking on eggshells because I don't want to tip them off or say the wrong thing. But if you're no longer afraid of tipping off or saying the wrong thing because you know you can go there and recover from it, then you actually know like we can get through anything. If you haven't had that openness and vulnerability and that challenge like in an argument or misunderstanding or confrontation that you work through, it builds your strength to handle anything in the future.
Yeah.
And so I love that and I appreciate it. I appreciate everything you're just sharing. I have a takeaway that I want to share. But first I want to hear from Kimberly what she's taken away for us. Roll it back to us, read it back to us, say it back to us, shout it
Roll it
back to
back.
us.
That was a good one. I like
Roll it
that.
back.
Roll it back.
Roll it back.
So my takeaways today are we each play a part and have one job to just show up for each other. We are family and community and depend on each other to progress in our spiritual life. So it's important to pray for each other and work through our challenges together.
Thank you, Kimberly. I appreciate that. What was coming in my mind, and thank you again so much for everything you shared, Tuta. It was yesterday I was speaking with Vasudev, not your nephew, but Vasudev, the pujari here at the Bhakti Center. We're developing this ashram training program. An ashram is like a resident live-in program where you can come and stay in the residential quarters of the Bhakti Center for a period of time and get training in your spiritual practice and
You can
education,
live
spiritual
like a
relationship.
monk.
You can live like a monk without having to be one. And we have it's for men and for women. Um, and and so we were thinking about like the outcomes of it and what people receive. And one of the things that people receive, one of the outcomes, is that you receive a one-on-one mentorship and personal guidance while you're here. And I was thinking, well, that's just not what we don't want the outcome that they just get it when they're here, but we also want to instill within people the recognition of the need for one-on-one support and guidance throughout life. So that it's not just like, okay, I get it while I'm here, but when I leave the ashram, I understand that I need to be connected to people. Like if I'm finding myself too alone or too isolated, I know I need to reach out. And spiritual relationships aren't always based off of who's sitting next to me in math class or who do I get along with or who likes the same type of music, but it's like it actually really is something very practical and real of like I need to get over my material differences because my spiritual life depends on it.
It's
And
like
so
having a spiritual sponsor.
it's like having a spiritual sponsor. And so I think for me it's so easy to let material consciousness sort of dictate my relationships where there's a little bit of a transgression, there's a little bit of a rub, we don't gel exactly the right way. And granted, yes, you should find like-minded people, and it's not that just none of that matters, but it shouldn't come at the expense of, well, I'm allowing my resentments or my transgressions or my grudges, holding on to grudges, getting in the way of me, my pains and my hurts from being, whatever it may be, getting in the way from me realizing like I have to relentlessly seek out connection with people spiritually in order for me to stay afloat and stay connected. And so, and to never give up on that search. You never give up on that search. Dana Kay saying, I've been searching for that. And we found you. You found us. Thanks for being here. What's the takeaway from you, Chuto? Something that you shared so many beautiful things, but what's one thing you want to walk away with and encapsulate?
Absolutely. What you just said was that relentless search.
Mm,
We're so about like those hard stops. When does it end? When do I get to just be and relax? It is a relentless search, and sometimes that manifests differently, but it is a relentless search. We really, like you said, our spiritual lives depend on it. My soul depends on this, and that's
yeah,
not a bad thing.
yeah,
And we hear it so many times. We want to kind of like release that responsibility. Your responsibility for you're responsible for your path. Don't put that on me. But really, actually, it's like you're responsible for your own happiness. Bye. It's not like that.
yeah.
We are interconnected like roots of a redwood forest, trees. We need each other. It is not that only you are responsible for your own happiness and I have nothing to do with it. I play a part. Something that I might say or do plays a part. And understanding that responsibility and taking accountability for it, even in a loving way, even just saying, "Oh, that was I didn't even realize." But here, let me get in and see how you feel. Right? It doesn't take away
Mm,
from anybody to say that. It's like I didn't even realize, but let me get in there and just see how you feel. That is, it shows real love. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj has said that. He said, real true love is accountability and responsibility. And the
mm,
same goes for spiritual love. It's true. You said it perfectly. It's a relentless search, and my spiritual life, my soul depends on it.
mm. Thank you. Thank you for putting up with me in order to serve the Lord of your heart.
Are you kidding? Thanks for being my family.
My honor, my pleasure, my privilege. Thank you all so much for being here. All of our live Zoomers, so glad to be in family with you each morning. And thank you for all those listening out there. So many of you we don't know your name, where you are, but we love you and we're grateful for you. We feel connected to you. Please be well. Please take care. And we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And we look forward to seeing you then. Bye bye.